I was lucky enough to be able to go on a trip to the DMZ that was organized by some of my students. Well, all of them weren't mine, but about 3 of the 5 who were on the trip were my students. They were so cute, they gave us treat bags that had these hand warmers in them. That was a great discovery. So, ostensibly, we were there to look at birds. Um, the point was to wander along this river, the Imjan River, and look at the birds they pointed out to us, mostly cranes, white-naped and red-crowned cranes, really fabulous birds. But of course, all of us were interested in seeing what it's like along the border as well. But it was a cold day, and the windows were fogged up, and you can see from the video that we're passing along the border, along the river, and there's a long fence, and there's these guard shacks. I'm sure you can see the pictures of the guard shacks. And when we got to the gate, we weren't allowed to take photos there. We had to wait for an hour while they checked all of our passports. Once we got inside to the South Korea side of the DMZ, we saw all these fields, and I think that what you're seeing is straw or hay baled up. But a lot of these fields, I think, are also rice paddies later on when we get down by the river, and I can't tell the difference between them. There was one town that we stopped at, Paju, and this is one where I think U.S. military people must spend a lot of time. They were well equipped for Americans or English speakers at this little town. And as we left that little town and drove along, we passed like the Montana outpost and the New Mexico outpost. They all had American state names. I only saw people at a couple of them. Like most of them were abandoned, but there were a number right down this road, and there weren't that many roads. But this is the DMZ. This is what it looks like. You'll see a lot of bus taken footage of cold, dead-looking foliage, trees, and grasses along very few roads. And this is what it looks like. There are farms, quite a few farms, in fact. They have really interesting farming techniques. They farm all through the winter. They use some of that straw to generate heat under some blue tarps, and they grow stuff, even in the cold. And people who live there, mostly, like I said, farmers, get special perks from the South Korean government. Like their kids don't have to go into military service, and I don't think they pay taxes. Oh, this is such good filming. Look at how you can see my phone in my hand reflected in the window. My apologies. Anyway, we were on this bus for a couple of hours, and when we finally got to the river, we got out along a muddy road and wandered down to the Imjan River, and we did manage to see quite a few amazing cranes. And I got some pictures. My pictures weren't as good as other people's pictures, but I think I got one of the best videos of the cranes, and you'll also be able to hear them a little bit. They have this really interesting warble. So in a few minutes, I'm going to stop talking because in addition to having some footage of the cranes, the way I got my video, oh, there we go. There's some cranes right there. 3 in the middle. There's 3 in the sky. The way I got my video is I was taking a video of this Chinese silvergrass, and I was so enamored of this plant. And I think we were leaving, and we kind of spooked a group of cranes out of the grass. And since I was already filming, I was just able to get right into the sky and watch them fly away. And right at the end of my footage of the silvergrass, where I'm asking people to be quiet so I can listen to the wind, you can hear the warbling of the cranes as they're like checking in with one another before taking off. And it was cold. There was ice on the ground. No tall buildings anywhere, of course. They don't have a lot of buildings, businesses. There's nothing like that here. And at one point we will pass, you'll see a place where they have mines. that's close to the river. We didn't see very many of those places, but there are mines buried in the hills still. Most of the roadways are cleared. I mean, this DMZ has been this way for about 70 years, so they've had time to clear a lot of things. Here we are at the Imjan River, and this is what I think. I think it's a straw field. Other people were saying it's a rice paddy. So if it's a rice paddy, there's clearly a lot of straw also, um, and they were using that for all kinds of things. So we had the five students and two university professors were along with us. These kids have been doing research here in the ecosystem of the DMZ for several years. They're publishing a paper with their professors. And the professors were really generous, very kind people. Oh, there's Caden and there's Jenny. They were the ones pointing out what everything was. Like in this river, there were all kinds of ducks, and there were cranes there too. Many kinds of bird. And the kids had published a little pamphlet for us so that we could find things. A little later on this river, we managed to see some eagles. And people had big cameras with big scopes and also telescopes. So they got some decent pictures, but I just saw the eagles. I didn't try to take any pictures. They were in a tree. And even though it looks like warm and sunny, it was a very cold day and it was kind of windy. So all of my pictures, things are kind of moving, so they're not very clear. But that's the silvergrass up there, where the cranes were that we scared into flight. And let me tell you, these birds are like 5 feet tall, and they're just majestic, just beautiful. So I'm about to go silent for a little while so you can see and hear the silvergrass and also the cranes. And it sounds so nice.
They're showing off.
Red crown. Right. There you go. Over there.
Are those red crown too?
Yeah,
Yes.
that's what he's
Yes.
saying.
They're the same. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so I was very surprised that I managed to catch red-crowned cranes. We'd been seeing them, but I hadn't really been able to catch them with even with a picture very close up. And they were just beautiful. And right at the end of that section where I was showing you the silvergrass, you could hear them kind of warbling. Here's where we saw eagles and those trees right across the water. But like I said, we had people that had scopes set up, big telescopes, big lenses, and that's where we could see them. Right after we left the Imjan River, we went up to next to the gate towards North Korea. So the DMZ actually has a South Korea side that's about 1.2 miles wide. And then there's a North Korea side to the DMZ, which is 1.2 miles wide. And we stopped at that gate. You can see they can close the road here right in front of the gate. So this is kind of on our way back to South Korea. It didn't take very long for us to drive around within the DMZ because it's only a mile wide, or yeah, from north to south. But you can see some buildings along this road that look like military barracks. And then there's a lot of birds in the air towards the end of this little clip. But I would say that the population, especially the military presence, is probably the most significant along this little stretch of the road. There were a couple of towns right at the entrance, like Paju, and then this is the only other place where I saw buildings on either side of this road, other than like small farm dwellings. We didn't spend. I think we were probably in the DMZ for a total of about 2 hours. Here's all the birds in the sky. These are not cranes, though. I think these might be ducks and geese, but I'm not exactly sure. And then we had lunch with the professors at a restaurant that was close to the entrance to the DMZ. The main dish was grilled meat, but there was this wonderful cheesy egg that they had cooked in these little clay bowls, and then there was they do all these leaves that you eat everything in. It was quite lovely. And that was the end of our DMZ trip.